It's no secret the Philadelphia 76ers have taken a lot of big swings over the years, and for the most part, they've swung and missed time after time. The organizational failure has been a problem from the top down throughout the entirety of the post-process era, starting with the league forcing GM Sam Hinkie out in favor of the Colangelo family, to Brian Colangelo then being exposed for having a burner account on Twitter where he would use it to trash talk his players, to Elton Brand taking over that role and immediately handing Tobias Harris the worst contract in the NBA, to loads of bad trades backfiring, to Ben Simmons breaking down both mentally and physically, to James Harden feuding with Daryl Morey, to Joel Embiid never being able to stay healthy, and so much more that I don't even have time to mention. They are officially running out of time to put together a competent group capable of going all the way and contending for a championship, and this summer will, with 100% certainty, be their last chance to pull it off. That's exactly what we'll be discussing in today's video, as the Sixers have intentionally set themselves up to have a huge offseason this summer. So today, we'll be discussing how exactly they planned this out, all of the different directions they could go with their flexibility, and what kind of risks present themselves that could backfire on them if they don't execute properly. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I'd also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The Sixers' season just ended with a first-round exit at the hands of the New York Knicks, but if we're being completely honest with ourselves, their season ended at the end of January when Joel Embiid ruptured his meniscus, which required an operation that held him out for the next 2 months. He did everything in his power to get back to a point where he could return to the court, so credit to him for trying to salvage the season, but the only way this Sixers roster was ever going to have a chance was if Joel Embiid was at 100% full strength, and ever since his return from that knee procedure, it was clear as day that he was still hampered from it, lacking full mobility and quickness. The plan was never for this year to be boom or bust from the jump, but their play in the first half of the season generated some warranted hope and excitement, only to be struck back down to reality, arriving at the deciding moment that is this offseason anyway. Basically, at the start of the year, the entire James Harden fiasco severely limited their ceiling, and with him forcing himself out, the Sixers pivoted in a way that made sure they would have as much money to spend as humanly possible this offseason, while also using the James Harden trade to recoup some draft capital to dangle in future trade offers. Trading James Harden to the Clippers got them 4 players who were all on expiring contracts, 2 first-round picks, and the ability to swap first-round picks with the Clippers in 2029. They are now at a point where they have just $59 million used up going into the offseason, which leaves $82 million for them to spend before reaching the soft cap ceiling. Of course, that doesn't necessarily mean they can spend all $82 million on free agents, because of cap holds and exiting free agents exist, but the only impeding free agent from the team that seems to be a lock to be re-signed is Tyrese Maxey, who will be signing a max contract extension this summer, but even that can be signed and timed in a way where the Sixers can execute their plans on how to spend their money first before locking Maxey in, giving them an opportunity to go over that cap ceiling when they sign Maxey after the dust settles. At the very minimum, the Sixers are right next to the Detroit Pistons as the 2 teams with full max slots available to be signed this summer. This now brings us to what their options are to do with this money. Looking at the free agency landscape this year, it's not necessarily the deepest group, but there are some very obvious standout names that could become available that will also be looking for a new team to offer them a max contract. 76ers president of basketball operations Daryl Morey also just held an end-of-season press conference with the media, and one of the most notable quotes from it was the fact that he emphasized that he will be looking to add a star-quality wing player that can perform at a high level in the playoffs this summer. The Clippers' season also just ended in a disappointing first-round exit, and after a year of back-and-forth negotiations between Paul George's camp and the Clippers front office trying to work out a contract extension, it seems very likely that George will opt out of the final year of his contract there to become a free agent, and on paper, he fits that description that Morey said. George definitely did not play well in that series against the Mavericks this year, but he's also no longer capable of being a team's #1 scoring option like he was thrust into for that series when Kawhi Leonard went down, and in Philadelphia, he wouldn't be required to do nearly as much as he can comfortably settle into a third option role behind Joel Embiid and rising star Tyrese Maxey, while still providing solid two-way play and keeping defenses honest, making it harder for them to put all of their energy into stopping Embiid. Another name that easily jumps out as an option for the Sixers to try to pursue is LeBron James, who is probably the biggest wild card of the entire free agency class. The Lakers no longer seem like a realistic place for him to contend for titles, and he himself posted on social media he does not yet know what he will be doing, so it's completely up in the air. The likelihood of him opting out of his contract and becoming a free agent also seems much more likely now than it did a month ago, and if it does happen, then the Sixers are one of the only teams with the money to offer him a max contract, while also providing a really solid blueprint for him to work off of, pairing him with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, which, by the way, Maxey is also signed to his Clutch Sports agency. Maxey's improvement as a perimeter shooter and his ability to create space off the dribble has been paramount to his breakthrough, but he's still more ideally a two-guard more so than a point guard, and the one thing the Sixers have definitely needed more of is playmaking. LeBron James down the stretch of the season was playing more like Magic Johnson than ever, averaging about 10 assists per game in the final 2 months of the regular season, then dishing out about 9 assists per game in their series against Denver. Him being able to orchestrate things when Embiid is on the bench would also be vital for a team that historically falls off of a cliff when Embiid is not on the court, but ultimately this is a long shot because LeBron's roots are still planted in LA, and if he were to become available, he would have so many other suitors. As for the rest of this year's free agency class, there aren't really any other players worthy of a max offer that also fit what the Sixers are looking for, but there are a few players that could be signed and make an impact to a lesser degree. Tyus Jones is one of the most underrated floor general type of point guards in the league and could slot in nicely next to Tyrese Maxey to pull the strings and play good efficient basketball without needing to be a primary option in the offense. Malik Monk is another player who is an intriguing scoring threat available on the market, but he may fetch bigger offers than the Sixers are willing to commit to a sixth man. They could, and probably should also, look to re-sign Kelly Oubre, but again, he might get a sizable offer elsewhere, and the Sixers need to prioritize bigger swings. This then leads us to the other route they could go down, being of course scouring the trade market. Just because they have a ton of money to spend doesn't mean they have to spend it on free agents. Trading for players that already have established salaries could work out even better in some cases, and there are a lot of rumblings of some big names being available on the trade market this summer. Starting with a familiar face to the Sixers, there seems to be some smoke coming out about Jimmy Butler and the Heat organization butting heads a little bit, and it didn't exactly help when Pat Riley said in his end-of-season press conference that Jimmy Butler needs to stop trash-talking so much while he's injured, which I can imagine won't go over very well with Butler. Butler's got 1 year left on his current contract with the Heat, then he has a player option for 1 more year after that, but with all of the speculation about the Heat possibly wanting to move on, the Sixers would probably love a reunion to make up for the mistake that they made of letting him go 5 years ago. Jimmy Butler at this point in his career is just not going to be able to go hard throughout the entire regular season and elevate for the playoffs. He's 34 years old and has already been coasting through regular seasons in each of the last 2 years. The Sixers, though, are much better equipped for Butler to be able to pull that off, because in the regular season, Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey would be carrying much more of the workload, and Butler would be much more equipped to save himself for the playoffs, with defenses having to put more effort into shutting down his teammates. Butler's one of the most notorious playoff risers in the league right now, but he wasn't able to show it this year due to injury, so if things get bad enough, the Sixers may be able to dangle their chest of first-round picks in front of the Miami Heat and get them to bite on an offer. Then, after that, one final avenue I believe that is worth exploring is calling the Brooklyn Nets and doing what they can to try to acquire Mikal Bridges. The Nets are in a really desperate spot right now where they're a long way away from even being good enough to be a playoff team, and they don't even own a first-round pick in this year's draft. They tried to make Bridges the cornerstone of their future, but the truth of the matter is that Mikal is just not a #1 option. He's always been an elite third option who can space the floor well, take advantage of mismatches, mismatches and defend at an elite level when he's not also tasked with the duties of a #1 scoring threat, as we saw when he was in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation as a member of the Phoenix Suns. If the Sixers put a package together that featured several first-round picks, there would have to be a conversation about cashing in for Brooklyn, and for Philly, Bridges is literally the perfect fit that they need on the wing. Now, of course, I just spent the entire video going over their best case scenario options. Every single one of them is a big swing that comes with its own set of risks, though. The first risk with all of this is, of course, the fact that these players may simply just not want to sign with the Sixers. All of them staying put with their current teams is a very real scenario. This is not a very deep free agent class, so if they don't land one of the big names via signing them or trading for them, then they'll be forced to settle for mediocrity. Another risk that comes with this plan is the fact that pretty much all of those targets are getting up there in age, and committing such a big amount of money long term to them with their production dwindling and their injury history stacking up isn't the easiest thing to stomach either. Joel Embiid is now 30 years old himself, and with his injury history, they have to maximize these next few seasons as much as possible because him playing at an MVP level is not going to last forever. If they screw things up this summer, then that may be the end for them, so a lot is at stake. We'll just have to sit back and wait and see what they've got up their sleeves now, but I hope this video was a good overview of why this summer is especially important for this Sixers group. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think the Sixers need to do this summer. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.